1985, you could attend WrestleMania for just $15. By 2015, that number had jumped to around $500. And today, fans are paying over $1,200, sometimes even more, reflecting nearly a 140% increase over the past decade. Despite all this growth, WWE is now struggling to sell those same seats. But this video isn't about ranting over ticket prices.
Houston, lower the ticket prices.
It's about something bigger. What made WrestleMania such a grand event that today WWE has the audacity to charge so much? And most importantly, why does WrestleMania even matter to us? What was the idea behind it? And how did the show of the shows became a reality? Because this didn't happen by accident. It all began with a vision. A vision to take professional wrestling and turn it into a global phenomena. And the mind behind that vision was
It's me, Austin.
in the early 1980s, Vince didn't just want to run a wrestling company. He wanted to turn wrestling into mainstream entertainment. And that time, wrestling was completely regional. Promotions were territory based, and no one was thinking on a global level. But Vince was different. He asked a simple but powerful question. What if we create one massive event, like the Super Bowl of wrestling? And to make that happen, he took a risk. Not a small one, a massive gamble. Vince McMahon put almost everything on the line. He invested millions of dollars, which was huge for that time, booked Madison Square Garden, and paid for celebrities and production. Because if WrestleMania failed, he would have gone bankrupt. And that wasn't the only risk. Back then, there was no WWE network, no streaming platform, and pay per view wasn't even fully established. So Vince relied on closed circuit television, where people had to go to arenas, and no one knew if people would actually pay for it. Then came another gamble celebrities. Mr. T, Muhammad Ali, big names brought into wrestling event. And this was risky because it could fail on both sides. Wrestling fans might reject it, and mainstream audience might not care. And if WrestleMania failed, Vince McMahon would not just lose money, he would lose everything. Whenever we think of WrestleMania, it always gives us that thought what would have happened if an event like WrestleMania never existed? Would professional wrestling be at the level it is today? This is Vector. If you are enjoying the video, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. Our target is to reach 3K subscribers before WrestleMania. Now back to the topic. WrestleMania 1 to 4 marked the early years of the event. The very first WrestleMania in 1985 featured iconic moments, including Hulk Hogan and Mr. T teaming up against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. Then came the Golden Era. From WrestleMania 5 to 10, this period saw the rise of superstars like The Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, and Bret Hart, along with unforgettable moments like Hulk Hogan vs. The Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. The Attitude Era, spanning WrestleMania 11 to 17, changed everything with edgier storytelling and larger-than-life personalities like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. WrestleMania 17 is still considered one of the greatest of all time. The Ruthless Aggression Era, from WrestleMania 18 to 24, introduced a new generation of stars like Brock Lesnar, John Cena, and Batista. It also delivered iconic matches like The Rock vs. Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18. Then came the PG era, from WrestleMania 25 to 30. This era focused on a more family-friendly product, while still delivering incredible moments like CM Punk's rise, Daniel Bryan's underdog story, and then continued dominance of The Undertaker undefeated streak. The new era, from WrestleMania 31 to 35, brought in stars like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Becky Lynch. It also gave us historic moments, including the first ever women's main event at WrestleMania 35. And then came the pandemic era, covering WrestleMania 36 and 37, a time when WWE had to adapt to global challenges. introducing cinematic matches and the first ever two-night WrestleMania format. Over the years, WrestleMania has grown to an entirely different level, both financially and in terms of global popularity. But that brings us to the real question: what were the key elements that drove WrestleMania to become this massive global phenomena? WrestleMania wasn't built to be just a wrestling show, it was built to be a spectacle. Every single year, WWE didn't just plan an event, they tried to create something bigger than the year before. Massive stages, LED screens stretching across entire stadium, and fireworks lighting up the sky. This wasn't wrestling anymore. This was entertainment on a global scale. From iconic entrances to larger than life presentations, WrestleMania turned every superstar into something more than just a wrestler. They became main event attractions, and the production kept evolving. What started as a simple setup in 1985 turned into a full blown stadium experience, with tens of thousands of fans watching moments that would live forever. Because WrestleMania wasn't just about matches, it was about moments. Moments that felt bigger. And that's what made it special. Not just who won or lost, but how it felt. Because when you watched WrestleMania, you weren't just watching wrestling, you were watching history being created. At WrestleMania 23, during the Battle of the Billionaires, Donald Trump stood face to face with Stone Cold Steve Austin, the rattlesnake, and for a moment, you could feel it coming. Then suddenly, the crowd exploded because this wasn't just a wrestling moment, it was pop culture colliding with chaos. And that's WrestleMania, a place where the unexpected doesn't just happen, it becomes history. WrestleMania didn't just grow because of wrestling, it grew because it broke into the mainstream. And Vince McMahon understood this early. If you want the world to watch wrestling, you bring the world into wrestling. WrestleMania became a crossover between sports, music, and pop culture. Years later, Mike Tyson stood in the ring in the middle of a chaos at WrestleMania 14 and helped creating one of the most iconic moments in WWE history. And it didn't stop there. Floyd Mayweather versus Big Show, a boxing superstar stepping into WWE ring, Ronda Rousey bringing UFC legitimacy. And in recent years, singers like Jelly Roll and creators like Speed have stepped into the same spotlight. Each time, it did same thing. It brought new eyes, new fans, new attention. It became a place where entertainment collided, where different worlds meet and created moments that felt bigger than the ring itself. And that's what made WrestleMania different. It wasn't just watched by fans, it was talked about by everyone. WrestleMania was never just about matches, it was about stories reaching their final chapter. For months, sometime even years, everything built towards this one night. Because at WrestleMania, legacies are made. Thinking about the biggest moments in WWE history, they didn't just happen anywhere, they happened here. Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant was a moment that defined an entire generation. Stone Cold vs. The Rock was a rivalry that carried an entire era. Daniel Bryan wrestling at WrestleMania 30 was the ultimate underdog story. And then there was the Undertaker's streak, 21 and 0. For years, it wasn't just a match, it was a guarantee. Every WrestleMania, fans didn't ask if he would win, they asked how long it would take. Until one night, it ended. And just like that, WrestleMania changed forever. The Bloodline story, a saga built over years, centered around dominance, family, and legacy. Roman Reigns at the top, holding everything together. And then came Cody Rhodes, a man chasing something bigger than a title, finishing the story his father never could. For over a year, fans watched the story, fans watched the journey, the setbacks, the doubts, the belief, until finally, at WrestleMania 40, the story reached its end. And that's what WrestleMania still does best. It gives stories the stage they deserve. Then came moments like the heist of the century, where Seth Rollins cashed in at WrestleMania 31, turned the main event into chaos, and walked out as champion. A moment no one saw coming. By the way, if you have not watched my video on WrestleMania 31, check it out. WrestleMania isn't just a one night event, it's an entire week long takeover. From fans events to meets and greets, and live shows happening across the city. WrestleMania turns one location into the center of the wrestling world. And with that comes something even bigger: money. Thousands of fans travel from all over the world, booking hotels, filling restaurants, and exploring the city. For 1 week, business booms. Cities don't just host WrestleMania, they compete for it. It turns cities into hotspots and transforms 1 week into one of the biggest business moments of the entire year. And that's exactly where WrestleMania is now starting to face its biggest challenge. WrestleMania isn't the same unquestioned spectacle it once was. Because behind the lights, the firework, and the grand stage, cracks are starting to show. Ticket prices have reached a point where many fans are simply priced out, from a few $100s to well over 1,000, and even more for the premium seats. And the question becomes, is WrestleMania still for the fans or just for those who can afford it? Then comes another concern. For the first time in years, WWE is repeating the same host city for consecutive WrestleManias, which raises a bigger question. Is WrestleMania losing its once in a lifetime feeling? Because part of its magic was always this: a different city, a different atmosphere, and a completely new experience every single year. And then, the biggest issue of all: the stories. WrestleMania was built on storytelling. Whether it's about Daniel Bryan coming out top as an underdog, or Cody Rhodes finishing a story. But today, many storylines feels rushed or lack the depth that once made fans emotionally invested. There's no long-term build, no unforgettable rivalries, just moments without meaning. And that's the problem, because WrestleMania was never just about being big, it was about feeling important. And if that feeling starts to fade, then no matter how big the stage gets, something will always feel missing. WrestleMania is still the biggest stage in professional wrestling, and that hasn't changed. But the journey is where the real story lies. From a high risk gamble to a global empire, WrestleMania didn't just grow, it changed the entire industry. And now, it feels like it's changing again. The scale is bigger than ever, and the money is higher than ever. But the real question remains: is this still the WrestleMania we fell in love with? Because WrestleMania was never just about being big, it was about feeling important. And if that feeling starts to fade, then maybe this $1 billion gamble is entering a new chapter. So, what's next for WrestleMania? And can it still remain the biggest show of them all? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep wrestling!